Go for it.
Okay.
I'm waiting to
Well, this is what we want. Backdoor man.
Hey.
Oh, you're all early.
No, we ain't got nothing.
Must have been.
I'm waiting to hear all the points, those 22 points you sent me.
Yeah.
I didn't read it. I just.
Okay,
I yeah, you'll get to do
Well, it's nicer when you're here. I mean, let's be honest about it. I like you guys. You're the funniest people I know. Apart from that guy who's in my mirror. He's a card, I'll tell you. Anyway, this is what I just sent you. It's a true story. My Republican is a dentist. I have learned a great lesson from him. Never argue with the dentist, particularly when his hand is in your mouth and he has a drill in the other hand.
Ah, yes.
And if he is of nervous disposition, it is wise to engage him not in conversation, particularly when he approaches and with a nerve says unto you, "How are we today?" I always agree with him, for always there is that tendency to realize that what is happening. I'm just talking to the camera. That what is happening is, of course, a delicate affair. For me and the tooth have a relationship. It's a holy relationship. Many a sacred tooth has gone from my mouth by accident of young student doctors and dentists who did not realize that the pain was in another tooth. So they took its neighbor, just like a counter-terrorism. So the bottom line is I never argue with my dentist. My dentist is a Republican.
And that is the tooth, the whole tooth, and nothing but the tooth.
Absolutely
Yeah,
holy
yeah,
true.
I had one, but I'm
Yeah.
not. And it's just good for
Okay.
a circle.
Sure.
It goes something like this. And it just started at home.
Right.
I am haunted by a ghost of once upon a time.
Yeah.
It seeks me out. It says, once upon a time you had friends everywhere. Once upon a time you had friends in high places and you were a wealthy man. Once upon a time life was blissful and wonderful and fun. Once upon a time. And then this nice soft music light called the Here and Ever After seeks me out and says, come this way. There are new dreams to be made. There are new once upon a times to have and share and make up and do stuff. So I go forward into the light. If I'm lucky, I'll never know over.
Look at that.
Getting out of the way.
Oh, thank you. Oh, sure.
Oh, I have anything to
Okay.
make up something, I suppose.
Yes, exactly.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary.
Scott, does the battery on that work at all?
On the battery on what?
Camera.
Oh, I have a power supply in it.
No, does it work on the battery at all?
It works, but it won't get 3 hours.
No, I'm just saying because you're the only thing plugged into the extension cord.
So
Oh yeah, if you unplug it, it'll just keep going. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
he's a genius.
yeah. It's
Last week, turned in electricity. Network people. He's
A lot of
IBM.
strip with me.
Yeah. It's lovely. Tell us a story. Louise, tell us a story. Tell us a story.
Oh, something you have. Well, I don't know if there's anything that I have that you haven't heard before,
I'll make
but
up.
probably I'll make up something.
Yeah.
Make up something. I'll just tell a story.
All you invisible people out there, listen up.
When I lived in South Austin,
Yeah.
in what is now SoCo,
So what?
that's right, it was not SoCo then. The rents were cheap.
Cheap rent.
I lived in the small house known as a Normandy Cottage. And the story is that back in the 1920s, you could buy these prefabricated cottages as a kit
Wow.
from, it was either Sears Roebuck or Montgomery Ward.
Wow.
And they would ship them down by train. And you would take your horse and buggy out or your pickup truck or
Yeah.
whatever you had.
Right.
And you could bring the walls and roof parts back, and some of which are south of the property. And there are several places near South Congress where people did that, and some became motels, and others just little collections of cottages, and mine was in one of those. And while I was living there, I had 2 cats. They were brother and sister. The male was an orange tabby, and his sister was kind of gray, and their names were Cagney and Lacey.
Oh, I like that.
Because Cagney was a little tough guy. And I would feed them dry food on the porch. They got a little bowl of dry food and a little bowl of water. Well, of course, this often attracts other cats.
Always.
And there was a small kitten, another orange tabby, so tiny that when the gate was closed, the gate was just from here to that stand right there, and the fence and the gate. The gap in the gate was 2 inches maybe. This kitten could fit through the gap in the gate.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, when I came out to the porch, he would run in here. He would run through that gap in the fence when the gate was closed.
2 inches?
2 inches.
Whoa.
Until one day when he was a little older and a little bigger, and he bopped his little head and looked very surprised. And I called him TC for Tomcat.
Oh, yeah.
And he just kept coming back, and eventually I just gave up and adopted him.
Yeah.
And he became one of my cats. Huh? No, a long time ago. They long passed on for different reasons. Right. Yeah, this was 20 years ago. But that was a happy ending. I could go on and say how they.
No.
A few years later, I asked my neighbors, the older couple next door, and they said that was. I think that was Cagney under our house that time. They wouldn't tell me at the time the cat was dead, but they just casually mentioned it. What? That was Cagney. What? Yes, that was Cagney. Well, why didn't you tell me? But these things happen. I'm sorry. And TC eventually went feral again and wouldn't trust me anymore. It's because I went on vacation and let them go for a while, and so I don't do that with my cats anymore. I leave them a big tub of kibble and a big tub of water. And I'm gone.
Thursday we're going up to Salado, Shadrach, and we're going to do cat. Oh, they're for you. You want? That's good. That's no, not Forest Fest. That's at the end of April. This is Thursday, February 6th, 2014. Get used to it. 2013. Don't cut it no more.
2 weeks, right?
Oh God, yes, you're right. Realist.
Don't go next
I'm
week.
a fantasist. I just live in the air, but she lives. Wow, she's got a poem about too. How accurate, if you put your back to the camera, you get a great shot of your back. What happened was, up in Salado, Jackie Mills, who's on the Chamber of Commerce, set up the library and the community centre with her husband, 5 times retired engineer. He just retires from a job and then he gets itching to do something. Right now he's building the community centre up there, and it's really good because people will be able to look up, down upon the stage and see Salado legends. But they have a lot of feral cats there. And so the Humane Society had a really hard job of looking after the cats, just snip and things like that. And so the first one started 6 years ago as a benefit for the Humane Society, so they could snip the cats and make sure the cats were within epidemic proportions. After a time, it was used for scholarships, and then there was the mermaid case, where in Salado Creek there was a little mermaid, and it was made out of just old water meters, very cheap material, just thrown together by this genius hippie. And the sculptor, after a while, 6 times there were floods through Salado, and 6 times he repaired the antique metal of the water meter. Finally, it has to be recast, whatever that is. It's a bit like Hollywood. And that's why we did a benefit last year for the mermaids. You know, the mermaid of Salado Creek, which is a legend that's in... And the magic catfish, which is a legend in Salado Tales, which you're welcome to come to, because they give us free tickets every year to go up, the poets, because we're poets. And they call us out, and now the poets of Austin! And 3 of us stand up, you know. Oh yeah, and they wave to the crowd. And there's 600 people there, you know, it's a lot of people. I think the whole town comes out for it. It's really good, because they're all in the play. There's 102 people in the play. And takes the story of Salado right from the epic, from the Tonkawa Indians, who used to take the cattle and turn it into McDonald's, and through the Spanish missionaries position, and then the Civil War. They reenact the Civil War from the side of the South, a bit of a slant, you know. So, but the trouble was they have to fight each other, you know. So there's a happy ending that's all tacked on at the end, you know. And that's the first school which had girls and boys in the same place, and a bit of canoodling down on the Salado Creek, you know, a bit of Table Rock adventures.
The ruins of that school are still in Salado.
Yes, it's a ruin. That's true. The foundations are still there, and there's a little sign saying this was the foundation of the first. What do you call it when you have boys and girls together?
Co-education.
Co-educational, yeah. In Salado, in Texas, yes. So we go up there as a pilgrimage, and sometimes, not this year, sometimes we're able to stay in the bed and breakfast overnight and have poetry all night. And this year, it was nice. It was really good. Poetry all night. Now that's the way to live, you know. I don't know about daylight, but nighttime is the right time for poetry. Trees and water and cigarette smoke. It's the right thing for poetry. It's all good. Now coffee's good too. And people are nice. I like it. Cake and cookies. But I digress. The point of the story is, yes, let there be light. Within 2 weeks, we're going to go out of the Austin city limits, and it will be a Thursday. Normally we leave on the first Thursday and go south, down to San Marcos to wake the dead. But in this case we're going north to Salado. We're going north, the rush is on.
50 miles exactly.
50 miles exactly. And then we turn off on the stagecoach in exit, past the enormous road construction which defies comprehension. Never, it's eternal. It's a bit like roadworks in England. Never. I've been there 10 years. It's the same cones. Cone the barbarians. There they are. And we go there and we are in the dressing room of the Table Rock Amphitheatre where they do Salado Legends. In that dressing room, on the wall, are the hundreds of people who have been in Salado Legends, and they're all newspaper clippings and pictures of people like us, famous people and people like us. and there's a little stage, first stage out of town, and then there's a piano at the back, and we do silly things like this on the stage for the name of Cats and Dogs, and then it's cats and dogs. We used to be just cats, and now I don't know why, but the dogs have got in on the act. Just typical.
Equal time.
But yeah, okay. I'm gonna hand over the dog department now. It's your turn.
Oh, dogs. You hold it? Oh, okay, yeah. Dogs. I've known some dogs in my life.
Me too.
I've known some real dogs in my life. That's true. No, actually, I haven't been grace with any real dogs, but there's a couple dogs. One time I was staying when we first moved to Austin about, I think 1997. Me and my fiance, we stayed with my brother-in-law and his wife and their son. They had a dog, and he was just so much fun. He was one of those dogs that liked to be loved. And he wasn't the jumpy kind that would get in your face and lick you, and everybody was saying, "Get down, get down, get down, get down." I think his name was Clyde. And that dates way back, because when I was a kid, we had a giant poodle, a giant standard black poodle, and we mistreated him something severe, and I had to make a confession. We tied him up with rubber bands on sticks, stilts. Yeah, so I have a lot of bad karma with dogs, and so I think a lot of this talk about dogs is making up my karma.
Yeah.
Sort of like what I did with the gerbils. I went away to the Rocky Mountains when I was in 8th grade. Bitter. Because I had a girlfriend there in Houston at the time, and I didn't want to leave her, and so I ate nothing but Pop-Tarts and lost like 20 pounds, and it was just bitter. And so in the process, we forgot to take care of my gerbil and give it to somebody, so it died. So when I got older, in the last year or two, I made a commitment to get gerbils again to take care of that ghost. And so somewhere in my future is a dog, and I'm not sure if it'll be a dog, because right now Isabella, as of last weekend, said she wanted a bunny rabbit. She was calling her mom and doing research and trying to find it. She bought a book at half price to learn about how to raise a rabbit. So, yeah, very good. So we're not sure about the rabbit, but I'm a dog man. I was graced when I was a young man growing up with my grandparents, my mama and my pampa.
Met dogs.
Who they had a dog named Clooney, and that was my real. You would think it would be, but she predates. Maybe he named him after her, the dog. But he was she was just a great dog, and she got to be where she, had arthritis in her legs and couldn't move around. But she was a great dog. So I've been blessed to have really beautiful, wonderful dogs.
Wow.
Well, I grew up with dogs. My sister once had a cat, and she was afraid. Somebody had told her that when you're asleep, cats would come up and suck out your breath.
They tell you
and she was definitely afraid of her cat for a while, and I told her, no, that doesn't happen. Yes. But as I said before, I had a dog named Esso, because she looked like motor oil, and my father ran a Humble station. Then it was Inco and Exxon. Yes, they would wipe your windshield every time you went into the driveway, check your oil, and they were on every corner. It wasn't just like once every mile, it was every corner. And gasoline was 35 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what 35 cents was 35 cents.
Now for the same 35 cents, you can buy a clearance paperback book at that price.
Yeah.
There you go. But one day we went out in the country, as we often did, up and down the hills, and we took my dog Esso along, and she was in the back of the pickup, tied by a rope to the spare tire.
Oh.
And we hit a big dip,
Oh no.
and she went flying, and she came down on all fours on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And we were afraid, of course, that she was done for.
Yeah.
But she kind of crawled away.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she had any broken bones, but she rested for several weeks after that. And her poor little paws were hurt. But she got better. So I once saw a flying dog, and it was mine. And you were talking about the feral cat rescue in Salado.
That's right.
Well, my friend Linda Griffith, who is Richard Paul Thomas's wife, she's probably part of that, because she saves feral cats and feeds them and finds homes for them. But she did the same thing for horses.
Wow, that's great.
When they had a place to keep horses.
To keep horses.
Yeah. Because when we recorded the CD for Chanteuse, Richard had a studio outside of town in what was an old cattle exchange. So they had stalls, and so instead of cattle back there, of course, they kept horses.
Yeah.
And she would let the horses out and let them run around the large pen, and she'd call in a veterinarian, take care of them, and clip their, shave their hooves and all that sort of thing. It's like I guess is where you take cattle and sell them, and yeah. No. It's more like a stock exchange of livestock. And so I'm sure that this is fascinating to our audience.
Hi,
Hello.
You're very welcome if you want.
Read poetry?
I think you came to eat, didn't
To
you?
eat or to read poetry?
Poetry.
Poetry, all right. We have some live ones, folks.
You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're just killing time right now.
Yeah, we're just
This is Saturday night. It's pretty wild in the old South Austin. But we were talking about cats and dogs because of the we're going up to Salado to do a poetry festival based on cats and dogs, right? And it's a benefit for the Humane Society and to look after the feral ones so that they're able to survive. So, but any poetry, you guys are very welcome because it's open mic, and the crowds will come, I guess, in about 10 years' time. They'll get attracted to the sound of
We
laughter.
often have a lot of people as the night goes on.
As the night goes on, you'll find you're surrounded by people. But if you have poems on your phone, there, you're very welcome.
I don't have any poems. I was just coming to spectate.
Oh, that's good. We're not used to that.
Thank you.
Okay, then this one's for you.
To each
All right.
other.
Okay. This is about. I've had 4 cats in my life. The first one was a cat called Dog. Dog was a completely useless cat. That's why we call it Dog. Yeah. And the one thing the dog did was die really well. One day I'm sitting there on the front porch, and Dog comes out, gets my eye, makes sure he's got attention, then keels over and dies. You couldn't only do that once. But I thought, what a great act. It's a bit like Macbeth. Nothing so behooved him in his life as the leaving of it. And the second one was a rescue. They've all been rescued. One called Ginger. Ginger was living in a cupboard, right? All the other cats in this house, which was a cat household, were really, really attacking Ginger, and she was so put upon. So we took her, and she was a queen of our household. She ruled. She became sort of like, the most loved cat in South Austin, and she died. And Wendy wanted to wish her farewell before she died. She disappeared one day, and so she came back, and she was sort of barely able to walk, but gave her cuddles, and then disappeared again, never seen. And then we had a feral cat, of course, come in and disappear. And then we've got one who's the last cat at the refuge. Nobody wanted this cat. This cat would stare you down and say, "Don't you dare rescue me. I'll scratch you, I'll claw you, I'll tear you skin from skin." So we thought, here's a challenge. We can't get this cat. So they called it Toots. I'd call it Scratcher, because she was feral, she was wild, she was extra. And what happened was, we just sort of said, okay, you're home now, relax. Shh, I'm not going to relax. I'm all stressed out. I'm a stressed out cat, can't you see? I've been a refuge all my life. So we said, okay, that's cool. You be stressed out if you want, but just here's some food, right? Relax. And now she just prowls around the place, just eats her cat food, sleeps 12 hours a day, just a standard cat.
Oh. Yeah. No, I'm in my head. I gotta look something up. Let's see. Engaging. I'm really proud of what I did for Christmas, and I think I'll share it. So, for Christmas, I had no cash. Literally, no cash. No cash, no job, no money. Nothing. Didn't have nothing except people giving me food and stuff. So, for Christmas, I gave my children gift certificates. And I liked some of them. Some of them were like a gift certificate, there were like 30 or 40 of them. One was Mesty's Bestie Daddy, which means for the whole course of the weekend, they could mess up the apartment and I wouldn't tell them anything. And the object of the gift certificates was so that it would be a challenge for me to do all those things that I normally don't do. Like in one instance, and this is how it all started, I gave them a patience multiplier gift card, which meant I would be 2 or 3 times more patient with them And that all came about because they would say things to me, and I'd be like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this. And so when they play the patience multiplier card, I now have to slow down and be in the moment 2 or 3 times more than I normally would. One of the things they gave this weekend, they played the late is great card. So we stayed up till 4 or 5 in the morning on 2 nights. And I said, okay, I'll commit to that. The one that's been very hard to do that they played just a couple weekends ago, and we're still working on this, like when it's appropriate to play. Like I rejected my son's card the other day because I was sick, but they played the, I lost the train of thought. Oh, there it is. They said, tell us something we don't know, Daddy, which is another card that's very hard to come up with. And so I've been challenged to try to figure out. They know a lot, and I've been sharing all these stories. But in the process, it's all sort of an improvement for the last birthday presents I gave my son, because I gave him a clean closet to lay in so he could read books and stuff, which he came back several days later and said, Daddy, I love my closet. But it beat the other birthday present, which was a sink full of clean dishes. And so things are getting better, and I'm getting more creative at what I can give them. And what it turns out is these things that I do at open mics count for things they don't know. So I try to make up new moments and new stories in the time that I have, instead of all those old ones from high school and college, and all the really good ones. I got to make up new good ones. So that's my piece.
Wow, pretty good, pretty good. Well, when we go to Salado in a couple of weeks, I have 3 poems that I have submitted, and I plan to read these. There are 2 cat poems and 1 dog poem. This is a cat poem. Widescreen.
No, I'm saying hold that thought. Hold that thought. I'm reading it. Are we back in like 1 minute?
Yeah, come on.
Okay,
you'll get it.
Don't read it yet.
Okay. Second? Oh, okay. You're going somewhere or something?
Well, yeah, I was going to the restroom.
Oh, okay.
We'll make up stuff.
Well, we'll just vamp until you come back.
Yeah, well, hold that thought. Very good.
Let's move our thumbs.
Oh, twiddling our thumbs.
Is this the dog you're talking about?
No, that's the house dog.
Yeah.
That's Elsie. She's all right.
Elsie. Remember Elsie, the boarding cow?
Yeah, I met that cat.
Elsie and her husband Elmer.
Well, I don't know. I've never met the husband.
You never heard of Elmer's Glue?
No. Oh.
That is the Elmer of Elmer's Glue, because it's Carnation Milk Company that makes Elmer's Glue and all the products that Elsie advertised.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Because at the Texas breakfast, which I go every year, it's on March the 7th here at Longside. Normally it's across the road, I'm sure we get free Texas breakfast. So I love the word free, as you know. So whenever there's free food, I'm there. So normally it's the first day in March for the Texas Cowboy Breakfast, right? Now there's no cowboys anymore, but they bring out Elsie, the cow, from Borden's Milk, and they give you free milk. So I eat the cow and I drink the milk and generally have a wonderful consuming time. And I've learned I'm not the only one who brings a bag for the goodies. There's a whole lot of people out there who've got bags on both hands, and they're shoveling all the samples in. And the samples have learned too, because every year they get smaller and smaller till they're almost like microscopic, especially the Central Market and the Whole Food stuff. A banana? No, that's a pea. You get a free pea. Okay, that's really good, but it's a very small pea. Yeah, it's not a capital P. So this year, because they're closing off Auditorium Shore so they can make a big dog park, well, they're going to have it at Long Center. Now, I love food. I think food is legal, and there are dealers everywhere, and I really dig it, So I'm going to be at the Long Center at 5 o'clock in the morning, because if you get there at 6, you're going to be a slow poke. Because all these people come out of nowhere. Absolutely. It's one of the great seasonal things of Austin. And you've got to see it to believe it. The free breakfast, the Texas Cowboy Breakfast. They have coffee, which is the worst coffee in the world. It's called cowboy coffee. And I think the old cowboys go to die in that coffee. This is what? It's, it depends on your taste. If you have any taste at all, it's going to be too strong. Otherwise, too weak. But I digress, because the fact that I love it so much. I'm addicted, even though by 7 o'clock, There's a line stretching halfway to South Austin of all the people who are waiting for the samples to come out from the free biscuits and gravy and all the other Texas treats. You know, they're all against the great god of digestion. You know, no one in their right mind would eat this stuff, but I'm not in my right mind. And I want you all to know that now. Anything free attracts me like a bee to honey. Even though the bee knows it's not going to live long, how sweet a life it is when you have poetry and song.
Hey. Good to see you,
Yes, well said, well said.
Hey, Julien.
Yes, we are.
We're here.
Yes.
So, what shall we do meanwhile? Name a song. Fiddle on the Roof.
That's correct.
There's no lyrics to that. Tradition. 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 Hard day's night?
Yeah.
It's been a hard day's night. I should be sleeping like a log. It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working, you should excuse me, like a dog. But when I get home to you, all the things that you do will make me feel alright. When I'm home, everything seems to be right. When I'm home, feeling you holding me tight. It's been a hard day's night. You know that Ringo and Paul are going to be on the Grammys tomorrow night.
All right.
And singing with other people and stuff.
Well, you know, I was not going to be here because today is the beginning of Australia Day.
That's right, I heard that.
Yeah, that's right. I normally have a ritual of going to the Boomerang Pie Shop and entering the pie eating competition. I came second because I didn't drink enough beer. But let me tell you what it is. Boomerangs are made by genuine Australians with a sense of humour, way up in Guadeloupe, and you go there and they, hey, yeah, mate, no worries, yeah, she'll be right, mate. You have a Barbie, you know, you get in there, and then you get the pie, right? They hand you the pie.
Check.
The fastest pie they've had is 13.7 seconds. I came in at 16.2. Why? Because I stopped to breathe. That's what did me in, the breathing. I've got to tell you now, don't breathe when you're eating a pie because it won't do you any good. But pies are magical. You know, I grew up on them because you never knew what was inside it. It was always a mystery. Later on we found it was camel and elephant and ass and donkey and all sorts of beautiful animals that you'd keep as pets. But we actually ate them, which is a very friendly thing to do because mystery meats, my friend, that's where digestion learns to be tough. You're not going to be just the cow and the sheep, no way. Not the little lamb who made thee, William Blake. You're going to eat anything that's inside the cover of a pie. And I'll tell you now, recently they found out there was horse meat in the pies that they were serving in England. Now in France that'd be a delicacy. Le Chevalier, a delicacy. Would you like horse with that?
I'll try it.
But no. There are people there, they're used to eating little dogs, aren't they?
Well, for those who don't know, we have an audience member who asked us to wait until he came back from the restroom. So I'm going to do my... He drove away?
He disappeared. Yeah, he disappeared.
Oh!
We got stood up.
Oh, gee. Well,
He was with some...
Yes. Well, why did he say that? Why didn't he just go? Jeez, people. All right, well, I'll turn this over to whoever else wants to do something here.
Julien was the host of the Headhunters, right?
Yes.
Now, Julien introduced Dex, and Dex went on with a sexual story that was quite extraordinary. And
Extraordinary?
a Dextraordinary,
It was.
that's right, he was dexterous. But Julien, I think you should do more of that hosting because you're a bit mild-mannered. You just withdrew and let other people do stuff. I thought that's not what a host does. A host is arrogant, loud-mouthed, obscene, generally oppressed. No, not you. You're nice. I'm talking about myself. Someone's got to talk about it. Come on, Drew. Ready to play? We'll soon find out.
It's good.
Yeah. something's happening here, and what it is ain't exactly clear.
There's a man with a gun over there.
Telling me I've got to beware. Oh yeah. So normally at this time, ladies and gentlemen, on the 25th of January, is the day before the 26th of January 1788, when 13 ships of Her Majesty's Navy came into Botany Bay, past a little point called Benelong Point, named in honour of the indigenous Australian Benelong who made the mistake of welcoming them in, never welcomed the white man in. They named the point after him, after they befriended him and took him back to England where he died of pneumonia. Natives can't take our diseases, we're full of them. But on the 26th of January 1788, every Australian worth their salt puts a Union Jack on their face, goes down the beach, gets plastered, drunk, and becomes a complete animal. And this is a tradition.
That's reputable.
It's a tradition that goes back before my ancestors were even born.
I know something about the early exploration of Australia. The Captain Cook and his band of sailors were going through the countryside, and they saw this strange creature, and they asked their Aborigine guide what that was. He said kangaroo, which means, what did he say?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that right? There you go.
It's a true story. It actually means I don't know.
I don't know, right?
Yeah, so that's...
Kangaroo means I don't know.
Kangaroo means I don't know. Right? I'll teach you some more Australian. You know, she'll be right, mate, no worries. I'll get you through times of existential despair. Nothing else will do. The indigenous people, when they saw the white ships coming in, said, there goes the neighbourhood. And they were right. It only took 200 years till they cleared the trees, made Sydney like a sawn off Los Angeles, half the size and twice as dangerous. I know most of you have seen Mission Impossible, which shows you the Sydney Opera House and the Domain. I have stood on that domain, done poetry on a step ladder. I have been in the Opera House on New Year's Eve with 1 million drunks, smashing bottles and each other. The Opera House was done by Joseph Ludson, Swedish architect, and they employed him because they wanted a beautiful design. We call it the mounting turtles. Turtle, mounting turtle, mounting turtle. If you look, you'll see it. But after a while, because it was an original design, the Australian government, financed this by the lottery, decided he was being paid too much, so they cut the amount they wanted to pay him. A little ferry takes you to Manly Beach. Manly Beach is a sweet little beach where you can sit and enjoy. Watch the waves slap against the sand. And then it brings you back across Sydney Harbour, and you go underneath the coat hanger. They now have a suit that's all tied together where 9 or 10 people can be tied together and walk up the Sydney Harbour Bridge, right up the coat hanger. So people do that and they get a beautiful view of the harbour. But okay, you have the triangle, you have the Sydney Harbour Bridge, you have the Opera House, and you have the harbour itself. Beyond that, of course, high-rise towers in the financial district. And there's a little area called Redfern. And in Redfern, that's where the Aborigines live. It's a wild town. And I lived, or tried to live in Sydney. First I lived in Balmain, which is a middle-class area with the healers. And then I lived in Woolloomooloo, in a hobbit house, with the hippies. And then I moved to, where was it? Erskineville. Erskineville was in this cockroach squat. And I was there, and my friend Clive came over and said, "Are you happy here?" I said, "Not really. Ain't not much poetry happening here." He said, "Get on the back of my bike." So I put all my stuff on my little army surplus bag, and I put the bag on my back, and I got on the back of his bike. I'd never been on the back of a bike before at 100 miles an hour. We were going 100 miles an hour, and he had scratches on the back of his leather jacket. And he said, "Tom, you gotta trust me. When I go around the corner, don't lean the other way. Trust me. I'm your friend. I'm not gonna kill you. I said, Clive, I trust you, I just don't trust that fucking motorbike. It was a 1000cc Laverda, an Italian road bike. I have nothing against Italy. After all, they lost the World War, didn't they? And they lose the soccer regularly. And they got the Vatican to deal with, even though they got a new pope. But the bottom line is, I lost everything I ever owned. I was going down the Pacific Highway in the back of a motorbike, a road bike, 100 miles an hour. Everything flew out the back of my army pack. Nothing. It wouldn't go back. It wasn't worthwhile going back anyway. I felt clean, fresh, broke. Welcome back to Melbourne. Poetry capital of Dunham.
I had a dream yesterday morning.
Excellent.
And I gotta figure most people who had this dream would probably interpret it as a nightmare. I don't know. I was walking on one side of a great ravine. And you know the logic of dreams. For some reason, one side of this ravine was somehow Austin. And the other side was some horribly devastated part of Africa strewn with corpses of all ages. And I wound up on either side of it at various points. I started out on the Austin side, and I didn't seem like I was entirely me. But some person I don't remember the identity of, who seemed like somebody I knew and was close enough and trusted, you know, at the time, kept coming up to me with this IV needle. You know the big fat ones they stick in you when you're in the hospital. And there was a long tube attached to it. I don't know if I ever saw where the tube went. But he kept sticking it in my arm right around here somewhere. And all of my blood would drain out. And the fucked up thing is I could physically feel the sensation of the needle penetrating my skin during the dream. The person explained to me that this was to cleanse my blood. You know, all of my blood would drain out, and then he'd put the needle in the other side, and all of the blood would come back in. And I could feel it. I could feel the draining, and I could feel the return, and I could feel the needle. And at various points, I was walking even across the other side of the ravine and through the corpses while my blood drained down a tube or returned up the tube. And I do figure most people would probably feel kind of horrified and nightmarish under circumstances when they're walking through fresh corpses with their blood flowing in and out of them like that. But it felt like a very relaxed dream to me. It just seemed like, yeah, okay, this is happening. Not a big fucking deal. Kind of like the great ice storm of 2014. I'm from fucking Colorado, man. If that was the great ice storm, I mean, I looked at that slight dusting on the fucking pavement and thought, oh my god, everything's gonna be closed in the morning. Man, where I'm from, school never would have been closed for that shit. We still would have had to walk back to school uphill both fucking ways. You know, if that was a foot deeper, we ain't gonna cancel shit. The libraries ain't gonna be closed. The schools ain't gonna be closed. Am I making enough noise? I can't even tell. I don't know, yeah. I can kinda hear me. But I don't know, I guess a lot of things that seem like a big deal to some are just a pretty fucking passive walk through the park from my point of view. I don't remember ever feeling an actual physical sensation during a dream before, let alone the puncture of a needle. I mean, my flesh has been punctured by many needles for someone in Austin, Texas with no tattoos. And as far as horse goes, I've never eaten it. But that all depends on how you're defining horse, doesn't it? I mean, technically I had horse an hour ago. But I'd eat horse meat. I don't know, what does horse meat taste like? I doubt that severely. Even ostrich don't taste like chicken, and that's a bird. Actually, it tastes like a cross between chicken and beef somehow. I had ostrich jerky once, some years ago. It's damn good. I would entirely recommend it. And ostriches are nasty critters. You can feel good about eating suckers. Because you know damn well they'd kill you if they was not me now. And at this point I'm just babbling. I haven't written a lot of poetry lately. I've been busy babysitting adults. And, well, she probably has something more precise to say. So, darling, please do.
Thank you, Julien. Well, there was a restaurant downtown on 6th Street called Wiley's. I don't think it's there anymore. And they used to have emu burgers.
Oh, no.
And emu is, oh yes, that's Australian, right?
It is Australian.
Well, emu is a red meat. Very, very lean red meat. It's very, very good. Makes very good hamburgers. And if you go to these craft shows like Pond Street and all that, you'll always find somebody selling emu oil.
That's true.
And it's very fine lubricant. But yeah, people eat all kinds of things.
Yes, they do.
Ron Kewen of Round Rock, who runs the open mic there on Tuesday nights when we're doing Maria's Taco Express, except the first Tuesday of every month they have bingo at Maria's, so sometimes I go to Round Rock and read poetry there. But Ron and I are just in the early stages of writing a musical, kind of a country musical. And this is one of the songs I came up with for it. It's based on part of my mother's life. That she grew up on a farm outside of a little town called Friendship, which is now at the bottom of a lake. It's been at the bottom of the lake for 30 or 40 years now. And in the play, we're going to assume that the woman is nostalgic about it, although I don't think my mother was so nostalgic about. I think she wanted to get out of the farm and into the big city after World War II and the Great Depression. But anyway, this is called You Can't Go Home Again. I need to resize it here. You can't go home again when your home is underwater. You can't go home again. That's a very good thing. When your farm is washed away. Why did I think that I could regain my lost girlhood? And why did I believe I could relive it all today? My past is deep below, a home for fish and turtles. No longer will I know the meadows of my youth. I wander in my dreams through fields of corn and sorghum. What happened to it all? I'll never know the truth. You can't go home again when your home is underwater. You can't go home again when your farm is washed away. Why did I think that I could regain my lost girlhood? And why did I believe I could relive it all today? When I was a girl, I rode to school upon my pony. It hurt my childish pride. My schoolmates rode in cars. But now I give the world to saddle up old Pinto and gallop field to field underneath the Texas stars. How I wish I could go back with Daddy and with Mama. I wish I could see again them smiling at the door. See Daddy mowing hay, see Mama in the kitchen. I would never leave again. I would never want for more. You can't go home again when your home is underwater. You can't go home again when your farm is washed away. Why did I think that I could regain my lost girlhood? And why did I believe I could relive it all today? Thank you so much. It's a wonderful accompaniment there. Next up.
Hey, Thom.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Yeah, go.
This is going to be fun. We were talking at the start of the night, Drew, about the clash between the past and the here and the now, and how most of us, including Scott and myself, tend to go back towards a comfortable past rather than living in the where we are right now. I used to make a habit of going back. The houses I lived in closed down, burglar alarms, gone normal. I used to go back to girlfriends I used to know, married, settled down, children, happy, bye-bye, farewell. I saw this black and white French movie, Les Feux Follets, Fire and the Fox, about a man who wanted to know the meaning of life. So he went around all his friends and he asked, what is your meaning of life? One said, my woman. Another said, my job. Another said, money. Another said, I have none. Right near the end of the movie, he kills himself because he's not convinced by anyone else about their reasons for living, being adequate enough or... And one person's reason can never be good enough for another person. You have to carry it with you like a little torch. Animate, illuminate your own life. The danger of going back is that things ain't ever the same. That storyteller on PBS, he said, when you leave home, you go away, you come back home, you think that your parents are the same parents that you left when you left home. But they're not. They've gone on. They're living their own life. They're 10 years older. And they look at you as if you're a stranger. Because you can't go home again. I went to my home, my family home in Chermside, Nielsen Street. Of course it's had 3 or 4 owners since. And of course the price has gone up and the parts I remember, the front yard garden, all gone. Colours have changed. The garage that my father built, just different now. And it always is a reminder of the same thing, that no matter how much you think you can go back, there ain't no way you can. Yet still, we tend to look backwards instead of forwards. We tend to say, hey, maybe yesterday was really sweet. And you forget the pain, the suffering, the difficulties, the unresolved tensions, contradictions that made you seek a now, in the now, for finding what you truly need. I used to have a collection of 78 RPM records. I had 300 of them. Beautiful records I'd play with a 78 RPM needle. So one day I thought, okay, I have too much. I'll stand and give them all away. So I stood and I got arrested for giving away records on the street. The policeman said, you've got to have a permit for doing this. So I went and bought a permit. And on the permit it said, and I kid you not, permit to occupy space. So for $12, I got a permit to occupy space and I was able to give away all the records that I had accumulated for so long. That was the 78s. And then of course I got addicted to LPs and singles. I had 500 records, and you'd never have in your own lifetime enough time to play these. I still have them. I've still got them, and I still try giving them to people. When people look at me as a strange, say, you don't have an MP3? You haven't got a CD player? What is this thing? Where's it? How do you play it? And I said, that's an LP. Before you were born, they used to have 78s, and before you were born, they used to have 45s, and before you were born, the world wasn't virtual, and people related to each other. And people still look at me as if I was a stranger. I begin to wonder then if the stories I like old stories too, and I'm going back to the old stories because they're familiar. I want to believe that there's nothing you have to believe in. I want to believe that there's no belief worth having, except the fact that we are here and now. And while that story resonates, we have something to share, which is each other's time, energy, and life. And that's what makes the moment fresh. Not a repetition or karaoke, or even an old story like an old overcoat stranger who comes up and begs $1 on the street. No, it's something new when you put light upon what's actually happening, and the blood coursing through the circulating stories of our lives, shared in the middle of a cafe night, makes everything fresh, makes everything full of light.
I'm just holding this for the next person.
Next person. Holding it for
Next person. Poets. Oh, poets. Come unto me, O poets.
Come to the torch.
I think there's a Mollie out there.
Keep it clean or what?
Yeah, me too.
I don't think there are children here or anything like that. There's a Cocker Spaniel, though, that might have tender ears.
Oh!
I don't say. Actually, she's a King Charles fan.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
Left your jacket on because I thought we'd be inside.
I know. They have a special meal tonight. Kicked us out.
Kick this out. Why do the poets always get kicked out?
I don't know.
And I have another question. Why do people still hide their joints and drugs in their cigarette packs?
Oh!
Why?
Seems logical.
Why do you ask questions?
I don't know.
Men embracing men.
Yeah.
Vintage wine and roses. Those men love. Masculine lips, bite power kisses. Their hard limbs entwined sink into sex. And eyes meet like a religion. Young gods glazed in beauty, meant for one another. And the drink is an ancient one. Those boys and men tangled in their lovely thorns of passion.
Beautiful. More.
To get what I want, this is working.
It is. It's just not really, really loud. But
To get what I want, an angel would have to fall. Paradise might be only so big. And I want mine, a star of my own, angel winged. And hell's been a delight. The burning was splendid. Sin was never so good. I went for mine, fluttering my wings like a dying moth. No one can say I haven't kissed fire.
Oh yeah, more.
Sure, go right ahead. Let's have some.
Yeah.
Give me a spooky sound.
ooh, spooky.
Do my favorite one. Let's see. This is my favorite poem in my book. That's right, it's in my book. This is on page 3.
Page 3.
Page 3.
Page 3.
There are still animals on the plain, running off into a fiery sunset. Giraffes on top of a heat-soaked earth. A sight like no other to ever be seen again. In the time of pyramids, heaven on earth, all gold and gods, till the one I met held me, drank from me, and dipped me into immortal life. Each life like no other, Centuries of kisses, centuries of death, brings with it the mysteries of love and life eternal.
That was a keep going. Keep going. Jazz. Sometimes when the moon is tired and the stars are sleeping and the world is deep purple, unrepeating, we go to the east side, East Austin, and do jazz with the Word Jazz Ensemble. Strict rules apply. You don't do the same thing twice. You immerse yourself in what others are doing. If there's music, you be music. If there's words, you be music. Words, of course, only 26 of the letters. Music, of course, certain scales and notes. The way we play is the way we live. Between them, between the scales and the frequencies, we send signals. Are you there, says the bird? Yes, I am, says the bird. Are you there, says the tree? Yes, I am, says the tree. Are you there, says the cat? Go away, says the cat. Are you there, says the dog? Look at me. All we have this night. How perfect. There was a Dutch poet who said, "Paradise is a lad to the stars. That man raking leaves in autumn will have a job forever. And the waves breaking on the rocks but never being broken, that's paradise. Voltaire had smallpox but drank a lot, including 200 pints of lemonade, that's paradise. Paradise is still a lad to the stars. You can't count them, they're so far away, so we turn in circles every day and say, I'm so glad I'm supposed to be going in circles. I must find myself eventually. If I keep going in circles, I will find myself. If I chase my own tail, I will find myself. If I find myself, I will know why I'm here, why I'm chasing myself. This existentialism is tiring. I think I'll be a dog.
Oh. You see, she's a watchdog, a self-winding watchdog. Those of you who remember what watches were, they were like cell phones that were not phones, but they did tell time. And you wore them on your wrist very much like these new wrist computers they have now. This is a futuristic love song about 200 or 300 years in the future. Olympus Mons is the largest volcano and the highest mountain in the solar system, and it's on Mars. Snows of Olympus Mons. Snow again on Olympus Mons. The Martian skies are blue. There is still the pink at sunset, and I'll always dream of you. Mastodons graze the grassy plains below our star-like earth. So lonely green this once red world, far from our place of birth. Content enough I seem to be, nanomeds sweep clean my cells. But the memory of you, my love, still in my ninth heart dwells. I miss you at Earthrise and set, and throughout the Martian night. I'm losing you. That I should survive you 100 years will never strike me as right. They have brought back moas and dodos and made a paradise of Mars. but they cannot bring back to me, my love, you beneath the stars. Thank you.
Admittedly, there is a certain darkness, absence of light inside us. There's a place, there's a space, there's a thing that looks like this, but looks like those things too. Yet, off in the distance, we can hear a sound. No further away than your ears, or your ears, or your ears, or their ears, that says, send a message to me like starlight across the heavens. Send a message to me that says, yes, the darkness in them is as well the light in me. Over the last 2 days, I've spent almost 4 hours in a hot bathtub. Not only because of the cold, but because sometimes the impingement of things needs to go away for a while. Until you find yourself in a place that says, yes, my friends surround me, my love is for the trees and the birds and the ears and the eyes of others, and I am in fact not alone. The music of a simple leaf falling to the ground, or traffic passing somewhere in the back of our mind, when in truth all that is really here is a sound and a waiting to come out. Sometimes I slow my mind enough to listen to glaciers ease down the sides of mountains. Sometimes I slow my mind enough to watch gently over time as leaves bud. Then there's the hurry to the bookstore, to a friend's in need that says, rush me, drive me, take me there, take me someplace where I am in fact wanted for my skills and my abilities. It's just a song. It's just a song that sounds like your pillow when it hums to you late at night. It's just a song when dawn breaks and says, yes, the sun out there beyond the horizon is only a light in my mind. It's just a song that says we're near and far from everyone, and there is nothing really less true or more true than anything else but being with you now here. Pieces of new, known. Music is a homonym to the soul.
Somebody trying to get in back there?
We're trying to get out. Whoop whoop. We're talking about time and how this is allegedly a new year, right? 25th of January, 2014. And may as well throw January out the door because we've got one more week and then we rush into Hallmark, love, chocolate, hearts, roses, flowers,
Everywhere.
fake love. I can't wait for fake. I'm so sick of real. Cinema verite, documentaries, PBS. Throw it away. Give me fake. Give me aluminum. Give me plastic. Did you know there's 2 plastic oceans now? One in the Pacific, one in the Atlantic, and they're just full of themselves. And I just love it. I love the fact we got plastic inside our bloodstreams now. That the water we drink has got minuscule We're talking about the water you're drinking right now and how it's a chemical cocktail of chlorine and fluoride that we pay to put in the water supply. Pay to put in the water supply. We pay to put in the water supply. Well, they said that Austin has pretty pure water, but they ain't never drunk the water in Lake Colorado. Don't drink the water in Lake Colorado. Not just the turtles, not just the little strange mutant fish. Don't even fish there, it's illegal, but don't, I'm not saying be legal, I'm just saying those fish, they'll kill you, man. The bottom line is, everything's been got at so effectively, that love has been got at so effectively. I say the three little words that mean so much: give me fake. Fake will have to do till the real thing comes along. This poem, this song.
I have a poem about water. I also have a poem about soup, but I'm going to read one about water now. The properties of water. Consider the varied properties of water, that most basic requirement for life. We cannot be without it. We virtually evolved from it. We are mostly made of it. We are merely a few impurities and water. Just think of the uses we make of the water outside ourselves for cleansing and cooling and cooking. Imagine all we do with the substance. Fathom what it is and what it can be. Water cools, heats, washes, transports, seeps, weeps, dissolves, dilutes, soothes, activates, sprays, lubricates, glues, catalyzes, floods, sweats, spills, quenches, bloats, floats, transpires, permeates, sprinkles, cascades, streams, tides, pipeates, drops, mists, showers, irrigates, channels, waves, boils, surges, swells, pools, pours, evaporates and desiccates, and all that is just in the liquid state. Water can also freeze, melt, steam, or sublimate. Liquid to solid, solid to liquid, liquid to gaseous, or directly from a solid to a gaseous state. These transitions and translations make our weather. Water estates, snow, hail, sleet, storm, and rain. Rain is the most precious watery condition, literally worth its weight in gold. In fact, in the Kalahari country of Botswana, hula is rain, and also the name of its currency. We must preserve this our treasure, each take no more than is our measure, save it for generations yet to come, so they all may still have some. Consider the varied properties of H2O, hydrogen hydroxide, pH of 7, the elixir of life, the one, the only, cool, clear water. Thank you.
Yeah, that is so good.
I'm of mixed feelings on the whole water purity thing. My roommate has a filter called a Berkey, and it gets rid of chlorine and fluoride and just about everything.
Wow.
Apparently he got it through InfoWars,
Yes, that's what they said.
you know.
Yeah.
And all the water we drink, in theory, is remarkably pure. But, well, considering some of the shit that's bleeding into the Pacific Ocean from Japan, considering all the shit that's bleeding into everything everywhere, it almost seems an exercise in futility. If you somehow manage to live a life where all the air you breathe is pure, Because you got them vaporizers and air purifiers and all them things, and all the water you drink is pure. Well, when all hell breaks loose, and the further perversion of our ecosystem continues, if you have to go outside, you're fucked. Because you're not going to be used to it. If more radiation bleeds into our systems, and you're not used to it, the odds of you mutating successfully are slender, to say the least. Now, they have said they plan on calling the next evolutionary state of man something like Homo humanitas or some hippie-sounding bullshit like that. I don't think that's what we're gonna get. I think that only those of us who are already inured to poison will survive. Those of us whose bloodstreams are already full of every goddamn awful genetically mutated thing that comes down the pipe, who eat the fucking Franken foods and are full of preservatives and, well, probably even better if you've done as many drugs as I have. I am concerned that a lot of those pure and healthy types will be like the dinosaurs, not fit to survive. Unlike the cockroach that has survived after millions and millions of years on eating whatever crap they come across. Al Bundy explained this in an episode of Married with Children like 25 years ago, and I took what he said to heart. We should survive like the mighty cockroach. And the name of our future form, I ain't gonna call it nothing like no hippie sounding bullshit like humanitas. Bullshit, fuck that. Like man's really getting better. No, I'm pretty sure we're coming into the age of Homo infectum, the poisoned man.
I heard a similar idea from Danny, anyway, he said the mutants are taking over, right? There's another strain of thought that says that the programs are taking over, the apps are taking over, that if you don't have a smartphone with the latest apps, you will not be able to adapt. There's another mode of thought that says that the machines are already reached a stage of intelligence whereby they're not bothering to communicate with their owners. There was a science fiction film called Colossus made in 1989 where a supercomputer was built, and the Russians built one, so the Americans had one, and they started to talk to each other and exclude their owners to the point of annihilation. These are beautiful scenarios to consider as science fiction. The reality is Fukushima has radiated a certain form of tuna, so 15 out of 15 that were taking those samples were glowing. The reality is that we artificially add chlorine and fluoride to the water supply, so I tend to agree that we settle for lower quality in order to be able to adapt when there is no quality at all. And the three little words that mean so much: off the grid. Sooner or later, due to solar flares or asteroids, the grid's going to go down. Cars won't go because they've got computers, you know, and the computer relies upon that little piece of electricity. Electric cars are just a start. The generator, the starter motor, all of those things are going to be stopped, and then there'll be time for horse and buggy. And people are getting their rocks off on the apocalypse. They get their arms for Armageddon. They're doing the Mormon thing of storing canned, impossible to eat food and water down below in shelters. This has been happening for 40 years. Ever since they split the atom, people have been terrified of the end of the world. Let's assume it's already happened and people have forgotten how to be human. What does a poet do in post-apocalyptic times? Invent new rhymes, invent new adaptations, invent new word and linguistic patterns that enable us to adapt to a post-wired world, to a post-magazine world where we'll actually have to learn to listen to each other, because all the machines that we use to amplify ourselves will have no electricity, no source of power other than your voice, your ears, your tongue, your speech. We are in process. All of us are in process. We're learning again what it means to actually be with each other, to listen to each other, to hear each other. And as Leonard Cohen said, let us compare mythologies. As the Indians say, hacha, how close to the truth can you get? Your next poem will have to be your best poem, because the past, it just don't work no more.
There is a house in New Orleans. They call the rising sun. It's been the run
know. I didn't know what key I was in.
Caught a vibe. We went for it.
Yeah. We played off each other pretty well.
So we're talking about tonight, not tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, I don't know where I'll be, but I know I'll wake up there, and then I gotta figure it all out all over again. I know what a weird way to start a poem, but I only know a few things. I've taught my kids this too. I know in the dark times when I feel sad, there's a little point in space that I'm just trying to get into. And it can be just off the corner of my brain, off to the right side of my ear, or it can be in the smile of somebody I've never met. I know somewhere lost in the shuffle of papers and pens and poems and ideas, there's a person with no face, no name, feeling blue. And this song and all my efforts go out to him or her or it, whatever it is. Maybe it's me, I don't know. Maybe it's you. Suffering is a real thing. And every poet worth his weight, not in gold, but in breath, in blood and flesh, is doing his damnedest, G-rating or not, doing his damnedest to help that suffering thing. It's what's made rocks fall down the mountains. It's what's made tears fall from my eyes, and maybe yours one day. If not now, then when? If you don't want to give it yourself, go back to dreaming. As plain as the nose in your face or an open mic on a cold winter's day, there is a man or a woman or a thing that suffers. And our hearts open up to them to let them in, fly like birds through the trees or wind. Sometimes the roar of the world gets so loud I can't hear myself think. But in the midst of all that darkness, a cry comes to me that says, "Help! Let me in!" So I open up my ears and my eyes to see you talking, to see you breathing, see you singing and loving, and it all feels okay. Somebody at an open mic once recently said, "We are not in it alone." I think it was Naya. We're all in it together, not to help any one man or any one thing feel better, but to help all of us feel better. We're just doing our damnedest. And I don't know, but every word, every phrase in my mind starts with a certain sound. I've heard the heartbeat of my kids before they were born. I've laid my ear against the earth and known that inside it is something good. And it does take a certain quiet sometimes to ease the burden of your own soul. And just to simply, it takes another man's hand or another woman's eyes to ease the going off in there. In my mind there are fireworks, not for the 4th or the 1st, but for every day that says I am alive and glad to be so. And I'm glad I am not alone, and I'm with you, and you're here with me, and we are oh so terribly old, but it just goes on into something new that I've never heard before. Peace comes when you let yourself out the door. And I have spoken of dogs, and they run with cats and birds and things, because there's some place that doesn't need fingers or strings, but just sounds. Love has no face. It has nothing to do with time or space or mercy or grace. It just is. And I'm glad it's that way. And that I have friends to share it with. And a love that'll carry us on into a new moment. Not tomorrow, but the next poet.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Using the same words for a different meaning. The Romans put heads on their coins. The Romans.
Yes.
Because they thought the center of consciousness was the head. And there is a certain perversion in the sense that people in Mexico have their heads chopped off as a form of making sure they have no consciousness, that their soul is gone. Now, on the currency of certain places, Irish currency has got fish. Canadian currency has got elk. Australian currency has got the emu and the kangaroo. And occasionally, indigenous aborigines. The question is, where's the meaning? I would say all of the above. Not just in the head, because when the head talks to the body, it says, I'm in charge around here, and the body says, you can't get anywhere without us. Not just the hands, although the hands can make beautiful art, because the hands without the rest of the circulation would just be dead apertures. Not just the eyes, because the eyes can see visions and dreams and hallucinations, but you can't sometimes tell the difference without the brain empowering the discernment. Not just a leg to stand upon, because that can get you somewhere, but you've got to ask, why are you going there? So where's the meaning? The meaning is in all of it. Every little bit, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the head, the heart, the legs, the arms, all of it. And even then, there's more of it. What you left behind, the Aborigines used to leave their water in certain places and go back to it like memory. The Greeks would remember their speeches, like Demosthenes, in certain parts of a room and visualize going back to those parts of the room. The Egyptians had yogic positions on their sculptures. You look at the hands and they're actually telling you what form of yoga they were using. This is all knowledge about where meaning is. Because some people, they go to rivers and they pilgrimage to wild rivers because there's some wildness there that's left. It's not dammed. There's only one wild river left in America. I went to it, and it's the Alligator River. And the Alligator River has got little globules. And I said, if this is a wild river, why has it got globules of oil? And they said, oh, that's just suntan oil from the tourists.
Oh no.
It's true. And people, they come from all over the world to go to, say, a rock, like Ayers Rock, Uluru. And the rock changes colour. And the rock's in the middle of a desert. But what they don't know is that 90% of the rock is under the ground, unseen. And they only see the top. If you look at a human being and just look at their head, you're only seeing the top. Whereas the rest of it requires every part of it to articulate the why of where the meaning is. Now there are libraries in San Antonio that have no books anymore. They've just got computer terminals that you plug in and upload and download. And there are libraries that won't exist for much longer because when the materials corrode, then that knowledge goes, and then we haven't got inside our skin, because they say the real story is within.
In a couple of weeks, it's Dog and Cat Tales. And I already had some cat poems, and I wrote this one so that I would have a dog poem. Years ago, a friend of mine and her son had a dog named Scooby-Doo. He was nothing like the Scooby-Doo in the cartoons. He was not a Great Dane or a boxer, but just kind of a Cocker Spaniel Chow mix or something, you know. Big dog with short little legs. He was a neat dog, but he did not like anthropomorphic dolls.
Wow.
Especially ones with animal, you know, that look like animals, like Chewbacca. Every Chewbacca doll that my friend's son had, the dog would chew the head off it. And one Christmas, they gave him a chew toy, a squeaky toy. And he was sore afraid. It was in the shape of a pea pod, and each pea in the pod had a face, a demonic face. And this is the story of Scooby-Doo and the hideous object. A gift it was on a Christmas morn to the mongrel Scooby-Doo, from a young man and his mother, a squeaky toy green and new. The object shook the very soul of that mixed bag shaggy hound, who with yelp and bark fled living room in a terror sudden and profound. Oh, horrid thing born of Hades' realm, why do you taunt good Scooby so? Why squeak thee with a harpy screech whenever trodden under toe? Must you take the form of pea-pod, each pea a mocking garish face? Must you lie as though in ambush when Scooby stumbles on your space? Thou sextet of hideous homunculi, each bearing a frightful sardonic grin, get thee thence to nether regions away from noble Scooby's den. Oh, Scooby-Doo, your home is safe now from that evil talisman. It is hidden safely from your sight, at least till you are bad again. Thank you.
Recently I've been doing poetry at people's funerals. And I tell them, don't die. Don't suffer. You think they listen? They don't listen. They die. They suffer. I tell them, look, you can always see things differently. But they don't talk to me because they're dead. Recently, this engineer, who many years ago was walking along Congress when we were doing the first poetry festival, he said to his wife, don't go in there, they're poets. And I was on the desk and I threw out a poetry festival program. She picked it up and she started being active in poetry and still is active in the Poetry Society of Texas. She will outlive him physically, emotionally, and on all other levels too. Because there's always another story waiting to be found. Last night I was at my friend's 87th birthday. 87 cycles around the sun. She has a memoir, Stories I Couldn't Tell My Children, about the wild days in the Cotton Club in Harlem and how she was friends with Harry Belafonte and Dizzy Gillespie and all those jazz people, and how adventures happened to her. Just a girl from Texas. She came back eventually, picked up a husband to have a child with, and her daughter said to her, "Mom, I thought you killed someone. This is what we all do. You don't understand, there's nothing to be ashamed of here." And she has no shame anymore. And she turned to poetry she met a poet called Albert Hofstadter. And Albert actually listened to her and said, "This is poetry." In other words, a permission giver. He said to her, she didn't realize she was a poet until someone said, "You're a poet." Now Albert, when he left, I think himself, he slipped away deliberately. There were over 200 people at the Hyde Park Theatre lined up for the poetry reading to celebrate not the end of the man, but the life of the man. Because what he did was sit on park benches, write poetry, and like you do, give it away to people. Once a year they have a thing called Poem in Your Pocket Day. And you go around and you give people poetry. But this is poetry of dead people. I would say, you've got a poem, give it away quick, because that way you get another one. If you're stuck with that poem, you'll only get that one. But if you give it away, you get another one. It's a beautiful thing. It's like a well of inspiration. So I look at my friends who are, tottering on the edge of age and mobility and decrepitude. And the thing that sparks for me and them is this ongoing creativity. The idea that the next is attempting to be different, divergent, to take you in different places you've never been before, no safety net. But by leaping forward like a gazelle, you'll over the fence of limitations. And I'm reminded of that totem of the kangaroo. When he said, what is it? That is an animal? I don't know. Well, the kangaroo basically is a vegetarian. And most of their life is sit around on the grass with their friends, sharing stories.
I tried to tell my kids one time. This is a sort of a tricky thing to tell somebody, but I told them once that, if you knock a glass off a table, it's easy for people to say, "Oh, I broke the glass," but it's just as well the glass hit your hand, so.
Like a tree that hit your car.
Yeah.
Jumped out.
We're just waiting for it to come around. Sometimes to entertain myself, I think about all the people who are actually making love at this time. On a planet of 7 billion people, you figure quite a few are. In one way or another, we all are. One of the happiest days of my life was when I got let go from my job. There was a time where I traveled this country. And I don't tell those stories very often, mostly because they're very, very long. There's one story about when I went out from San Antonio. I was sitting at a friend's house and I was due to go on the graveyard shift and stop and go, and stoned to the gills on my couch, on their couch. No, I didn't really want to go back into stop and go, and I heard a friend in the other room say, "Hey, I'm going to California for 2 weeks of silence and a Buddhist retreat." So my angel in its infinite wisdom said, "I'll take you." And that's a very long story that dates almost 20 years, because the woman I met at the time showed up on the doorstep of that same job I got let go from.
Whoa.
That's a true story. But that story is so long, and some of the moments are so choice, I'll only be able to tell you a little bit of it. Because as my friends used to put it, I would go into a room and I'd say, "Hey, I never met you. I got a great story to tell about going to California." And I'd say, "You want the short version? It lasts about 15 minutes. Or do you want the long version? It lasts about 45. And my friends from the other room would pipe up, "Take the short version!" But I can't quite tell you what it's like, so I'll just tell you what it was. We headed out in that car, my little old champ, silver champ, was having trouble out in New Mexico. We were headed to the Grand Canyon. We had some car trouble. I believe it was in New Mexico. We had to pull over for a while. Wasn't sure we were going to make it. And then, as the powers would have it, we were driving up Grand Canyon Ridge. As the sun was setting on the western side of the Grand Canyon, we were going to make it to the Grand Canyon. I mean, we were going to make it no matter what. It started to get sort of dark. We heard a bad clunk. So we turned the car around as best we could. Me and Scott, his name was Scott too, Scott Loki, which I've always thought was funny that his name would be Loki. He introduced me to Romelard, which is a totally different other story. Friend put it once, it was like taking heroin, but much worse. Or better, depending on how you look at it. So we pulled over and we tucked away in the back of that little champ, eating our granola and curled up in the snow on the ground outside. We were getting warm like gerbils, and we woke up the next morning, walked out in the middle of the street, and half my transmission was in the middle of the road. I think we actually woke up because the park rangers came by and knocked on our window and said, "What the heck are you doing here?" So we said, "We'll move our car." They said, "Yes, you will. You will take it into Grand Canyon Village and you will do something with this car." So we got it towed to Grand Canyon Village, and I had no money, yet again. It seems to be a recurring theme in my life. Apparently, I'm not very much interested in it. So we took it to Grand Canyon Village. The guy bought it for $100.
Oh, wow.
And that was only for the radio that was in it. Because it would have cost thousands to fix it. So we walk into the hotel there in Grand Canyon Village. Me and Scott. That's the other Scott, not me. And I go to the end of that counter where they're checking people in, and I look up, and a woman, that same woman I met 20 years later at the foot of my door, and they talk about the lightning bolt. It was the lightning bolt. I spent the next 2 weeks with her. That night, did our best to make love, and we did. Stories you want to tell your kids, yeah. So then I headed out to California. She dropped me off in Phoenix. And I was psyched. First time I ever got to hitchhike. And I did it right. You know, I dressed up in nice clothes and nice little Bermuda shorts or whatever. These are shorts, not Bermuda. I've never been much on Bermuda shorts. Jamaica maybe, but not Bermuda. So the sun was setting yet again, as it does every day. And I had my nice backpack on. I started hiking down the freeway outside of western side of Phoenix. It's beautiful, just gorgeous. I get about a mile, and then lo and behold, in the middle of the road, a nice 4x8 sign is a big sign that says State Penitentiary, do not pick up hitchhikers. I thought, oh darn, this is going to be a long night. Spent the next 14 hours hitchhiking around, actually walking, and getting rides on the backside of the state pen. Spent about the better part of 6 hours at a bus station that was the wrong bus station. Reading Kipling. I had eclectic works of Kipling. Read Moby Dick that trip too. It was a blast. Good timing, I think. You know, if you're going to make moments in your life, make them poetic. I've been trying to tell my kids that. So I got the bus. Rode Zen Mind, Beginner Mind on that bus trip out to California. Spent a month out there taking Rumble Arch with my friends, doing all sorts of damage to my body and my mind. Had a great, wonderful time, as the case is when you do damage to your mind. And made it back. That's all I can tell you for now. I'm glad I did. Thank you.
Who's there? Okay. Someone asked me if I like Kipling. I said, well, no, I never kibbled. Anyway. Thom was talking about having friends of a certain age and older who, you know, have health problems and they die. And you can imagine my parents in their 80s and 90s. They were going to funerals every week or two. But a few years ago, I think they were already in their 90s. My father was 92 and my mother was 90 or something like that. And they got an invitation from a friend of theirs who was turning 100. He was in good health. He was standing tall and walking around. And they took one of, I guess, the last big trips of their lives, drove a couple of 100 miles to his birthday. And that must have been a great relief, you know. I guess one of the drawbacks of having a lot of friends is when you get older, you see them disappear one at a time. But once in a while, something like that happens, and you think, wow, you know, there is still some life out there. You make me feel so young. You make me feel like spring has sprung. And every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I want to go play hide and seek
I want to go and bounce the moon just like a toy balloon. You and I are just like a couple of tots, tater tots, running across the meadow, picking up lots of forget-me-nots. The moment that you speak, I want to go play hide and seek. I want to go and bounce the moon just like a toy balloon. 'Cause you make me feel so young. Thank you. Drew can play anything.
Yay!
He just sung it, but it's a previous to that. Let's do it.
Well, now it's just us.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you some road stories. I have never hitchhiked in America because of the mass murder syndrome that people seem to have here. But I used to hitchhike all the time around Australia and New Zealand, and including Tasmania. I hitchhiked across the Nullarbor Plain, but at that stage, it was before my poetry career.
He's been playing all night.
I know, but he's been playing so beautifully all night. You know, you get addicted to it. You think he can do anything at any time at all time. Anyway, I it's true. I used to buy boxes of 500 balloons, right, from the novelty manufacturers, and I would, big box, and I'd take it into a festival hall in Melbourne or any concert. I'd pass out balloons to people. And of course, people being people, some people would blow them up, some people would burst them, some people would squirt them over the place. But I just love what happens when people are allowed to play with colours. I wasn't always a poet. I had a career as a balloonist. I started with rivers. I learned that if you blow up balloons and put them on rivers, they float like ships of swans elegantly all through the city. People are puzzled by balloons on the surface of their water. Lakes don't work as well because the wind is lazy and they just sit there. No fun. But roads. Once I had an open-top car, and we blew up hundreds of balloons and pushed them out of the open-top car onto the roadway. A traffic jam for 10 miles occurred because no one in their right mind wants to hurt a balloon. If you are confronted with 200 balloons in front of you, what are you going to do? I ballooned Sydney Harbour. It's true, long before terrorism. Little fish would bite the balloons. Boom! I ballooned the Nullarbor Plains, going in a bus across the Nullarbor Plain, blowing up the balloons, and I'm sure many stories of UFOs were due to my balloons. But I had to stop, because one night at a Tina Turner concert, people gathered my balloons together, pushed them on stage, and Tina Turner danced behind my balloons. I could not top that night, so I had to turn to poetry. Another colourful and beautiful culture made for people who just need a little bit of colour in their lives. Oftentimes when I was down, I would get a hitchhike round. I would go as far as my mood would take me. Say I was depressed for 300 miles. Many an adventure occurred when I was hitchhiking between here and there. One time, I was leaving Melbourne to go to the capital, Canberra, a mere matter of some 500 miles. These Dutch people picked me up in an old taxi. They were smoking some strange thing. I was young at the time, and they were speeding and laughing, speeding and laughing, speeding and laughing. The police car pulled them over and gave them a ticket for speeding, and they ripped the ticket up and threw it out the window. Then they drove, speeding and laughing, smoking, speeding and laughing. They were pulled over again. They ripped the ticket up and threw it out the window. 3 times this happened. Finally, I had the courage to ask them, "Dear Dutch people, why is it that you can rip up speeding tickets with such impunity?" And they laughed and showed me, "International driver's license. We leave tomorrow." True story. Another time, hitchhiking around Tasmania. Tasmania is an island, and it's a very, very incestuous island. And this man picks me up in a Volkswagen. Have I told you this one? About the gun? He said, "Yeah, you ever fired a Magnum?" You remember the story now? Anyway. He's putting along his Volkswagen. And he says, "See that car coming towards us?" "Yep. That guy's going to fuck my wife." I said, "Really?" He said, "Don't worry, I'm going to fuck his." It's true, I couldn't make this up. He says, "You ever fired a gun?" I thought, no, I haven't really fired. I have fired, you know, some guns, but not really professional. He said, "You ever fired a Magnum?" Dirty Harry. I said, "No." I saw the movie, that was enough. You look in the glove box. Volkswagen glove box about this big. The gun is about this big. Just take it out. Okay. This thing's heavy. 2 hands full. Gun in my hand. And he said, "Put it on the window." Put it on the windowsill. He said, "Hit the tree." I said, but. He said, "Just very calmly pull, squeeze the trigger, don't pull too far." Boom! I'm deaf for 3 days. Volkswagen is a small little car. Amplifies the sound. I've just fired this gun, and I missed the tree anyway. But I'm deaf. I can't hear a word. He's talking in mime. I'm in a stranger's car in the middle of nowhere with a man with a gun in his hand that I've just fired. Who am I going to tell this to? Says some poets in Austin, Texas, in January 2014.
What time is it, kids?
We got plenty of time.
You're tired of us.
And you guys are going to maintain this.
True story.
We need more people. We have to make this more commercial somehow.
I'll buy that.
Well, exactly.
How you gotta do that?
We have to become marketable. This is the 21st century in which the most important thing you can be is marketable. You know? We have to figure out how to make people pay us for babbling at them senselessly for hours at a time. We have to add more sex and violence. Oh hell, I'd never...
That's how you get paid.
I don't know, maybe I'd get elected just by being honest. When they'll ask me whether I inhaled, I'll say, "Honey, I inhaled, I ingested, I shot, I snorted, I fucking combined those things. I lost my virginity in a 3-way on acid in Albuquerque, New Mexico on Cinco de Mayo."
Wow.
I'll admit to all of these fucking things. And maybe that'll be so refreshing. Then again, I don't believe in democracy. Clearly, the people are too stupid to rule themselves. They must be ruled by their betters. I agree with Lord Voldemort about this. The fucking muggles need to be ruled by the wizards for their own good. Not people like him. Obviously, he didn't care. You know, they shouldn't be ruled by your evil sort of wizards, because they're just selfish assholes who want to rule for the sake of ruling, not for the sake of making things actually better. I say give me 25 years of unquestioned obedience by all of humanity, and by the end of it, they should be able to govern themselves. 25 years, or the rest of my life, whichever comes first. It's entirely possible I'll live another 25 years because I'm pretty sure there is no justice. I mean, I'm continually grateful for that. Every time I worry about an injustice that's happening somewhere, I remember the fact that I'm still fucking breathing qualifies as an injustice, so thank God there's no justice. And then someone got pissed off at me earlier this week for not believing in God.
Oh no, don't they know?
Well, I don't know. I figured out today that the closest to prayer I can come, aside from my usual, you know, when I realize what my life is about and what I have to do thing of looking at the sky and going, fuck you, really? I have to, really? Other than that, though, the closest to praying I can come is pretty much like, hello, whatever, if you exist, please help this stay a nice day, and if you don't exist, then clearly I'm just talking to myself. Then again, God said on Facebook just the other day that he realized he was God when he was praying one day and realized he was talking to himself. I don't know, I can believe in the God on Facebook. Does anyone here know God? Facebook God?
I know Facebook.
I don't have Facebook.
Oh, Lord, really?
There you go.
It's like email, only better. It really is. Like, if you just use Facebook in a utilitarian fashion, it is very much like super email. And you can send, if you want to scream something at like a couple of hundred people, you can. If you want to say something specific to only one person or 3 or 4 people, you can without dealing with any weird additional bullshit. And you can share any kind of file. As much as I don't like making that smug little asshole who created it money, it does still have a fucking function, you know. I don't know, with the technology we have, ruling the world would probably be a much simpler thing than it would have been once upon a time. This is the kind of thing I think about a lot. I don't know, the first thing I would do if I were suddenly in charge of all nations, I would transform public transit. You know those magnetically driven bullet trains they have in Japan? I think those should be everywhere. Get the Germans and the Japanese together on putting those things everywhere. I think they kind of still owe us one after their last collaboration, right? I don't know, I think Japan's kind of paid its karma on that score. But still, they know how to do it. They have those trains. Build those trains to go everywhere they possibly can. And for certain cities, for the cool cities, I'd create a series of double-decker buses that on the base floor of the bus would have a hash bar. It's also served margaritas and breakfast tacos. And the upstairs section of the bus would be for the, you know, you'd still have to have a class envy thing to get people to do stuff. That's one of the reasons communism often doesn't work. If you have no classes, nobody feels any great, you know, drive to be better. So, you know, I'd have a special, like, upper section, the VIP section of the bus upstairs, which would have even more substances. Upstairs would be an opium den full of sacred prostitutes, trained by the Ordo Templi Orientis and the Church of Satan. Oh boy. Yeah, upstairs would be for special people. Everybody could get on the base floor of the bus and smoke hash and have a margarita and a breakfast taco or some shit. But only citizens who had contributed to society in some appreciable manner would be allowed to go upstairs. See, if you remove a lot of the religious bullshit and fear from the way the world is being run and motivate people properly, positive reinforcement, You know, you'd still have to hold on to some negative reinforcement for the various people that want to inflict their whatever on others. You know, you'd still have to have some way, like the government would still have to have some way to like stamp down on Nestle for draining the resources of third world countries and giving those people back nothing for it. See, the punishments for the people who commit real crimes, unfortunately, pretty much don't even exist. Never mind being as severe as they should be. I mean, people that are willfully committing crimes against all of humanity should be punished in ways that make Vlad the Impaler look like Jimmy Carter. Whereas people who've committed most of the things people are actually in prison for probably they should probably not be there at all, most, or a lot of them. I mean, how many people in the prison system are really in there because they're rapists or murderers or, you know, like serious thieves? I wonder what the percentage really is. How many people are in prison for soliciting a prostitute or buying weed or buying any substance they plan on putting in their own body? You know, how many people are in prison for, if crime at all, what really constitutes only a crime against oneself? That kind of ethics has to be driven from our world, because it's what holds people back from fighting a lot of brutality and ugliness. And there isn't fuck all I can really do about it in this position. I don't have any money. I don't have a loud enough voice yet. There are ways around that. We're working on that. Little by little. And everybody has access to media now. Andy Warhol, if his consciousness still exists in its Andy Warholian form in some form or fashion in the universe, is laughing unless he's been reincarnated as something else or Lord knows what, he's laughing his ass off. Because we are so living in the world he vaguely dreamed of back when he said everybody will someday be famous for 15 minutes. Our technology has evolved massively. Our culture hasn't. There are still people who think the world is 6,000 years old and that the sun was created 4 days in, and, you know, because some chick got talked into eating a piece of fruit by a snake, God had to nail his kid to a tree to save us all. There are people who still literally think that happened. I got shit from one the other day. And she was, you know, well, talking to her friends on her little post when it came out that I don't believe we're living in the Christian end times. Okay, she's also an activist. If she believes these are the end times, what fucking difference does it make? Just wait for the rapture and shut the fuck up. You know, if that's what you expect, why try to create a better world? Contradictions. I mean, when you really think about, I mean, shit, it's still legal to sell creationism in Texas schools is fact, I think. And Texas, apparently, I just read this today, Texas just took away the Algebra 2 requirement for high school students. Oh, wonderful. Good idea. Yeah, let's teach them the world is 6,000 years old and was created by an angry Jewish dude in the sky. And you don't need to know Algebra 2. You know, we're lucky that they still have to learn Algebra 1, not that anybody remembers that 10 years after they get out. There was no coherent point to all of this, I don't think. But maybe there were several in there somewhere. I still want to see those fucking rolling hash bars full of sacred prostitutes, goddammit, before I die.
Not if I sit on your coat.
That's okay. It's a long coat.
Well, it boils down to stories. You know, stories. Your stories are wonderful stories. Your songs are wonderful. And the idea of all of us having the capacity to improvise our own world is something that's tantalizing, scintillating, and totally possible. What is most electrifying is the fact that most people don't want to be electrified. you know, and they settle for a disease called consumption. I mean, if you think, wait a minute, you're putting your time and energy into a hollow tube, that's a hollow tube. Who is doing the program? If you met them, they'd be sort of small little robotic Los Angeles screenwriters, you know. You think, wait a minute, Breaking Bad? I want Breaking Good. Weed? I don't want weed, I want gardens. So the programs of the ones we make are sort of live, living, a conversation, and they're based on ancient village principles of forgive my word, I'm going to say this word, listening to each other. I know, it's just not cool, and will never be financial, thank heavens, but what it will be is vital enough to give us some idea that you don't have to settle for bad ideas. I mean, how many years the Russian people had to put up with a bureaucratic tyranny that they called communism, but it violated all the principles of the philosophers of communism. How many years do we have to have an economy that is run by 1% with 40% of all the resources? Everyone knows it's wrong, but what are you going to say? What we're going to say is, I've got a better story. And the better story is the ones you sing, the ones you make up, the ones you improvise, the ones you share at open mics, like this one. You ready? Okay. I like that. Yes. Tag.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, apparently so.
That's all.
Yeah.
Oh, I looked through my book of prepared stuff and I didn't like anything for it tonight, so I am gonna make it up. Thank you, because I just had a nice bowl of gnocchi, which I told them to throw in some shrimp because I couldn't decide between that and the grilled shrimp, and it was absolutely delicious. And I drank hot chocolate with Nutella. And talk about legal drugs, it just started the endorphins, and I thought, yeah, there is a heaven.
There is. Right on.
You don't need to believe in God to believe in heaven and hell, you just have to live in Texas and try to be right. And not be part of the 1%. So it's one of the reasons I almost feel like I want to give him a response, because I am a high school physics teacher, and yes, they did away with Algebra 2 to make kids think, oh, I can get a diploma which doesn't do anything. You know, the paper it's written on, it's not even valuable, which is why I'm working my way out of education, because I can no longer be part of the Texas education machine. Thom has heard me talk about this for years, but I got my first part-time job being a tech writer, so I am one part-time job away from quitting. And I don't regret that at all. What I regret is that I stayed in a toxic environment for as long as I did. The only silver lining is that I bonded with my students and I helped some of them in the 5 years that I was there, but the system is really against them because they're minority and they don't have enough money. I mean, that's the bottom line. And so the way you fight this, so far, my plan, I have been writing notes, typing them up in my laptop. When something pisses me off, instead of letting it fester in my brain and stopping me from sleeping, I just write it down. And one day, after I finish my second novel, which I've had a breakthrough in, I'm very excited about that. After writing 200 pages, I decided to go back and outline it. That works so much better. I see all the gaps. Anyway, after I finish the second novel, I'm going to write the third novel, which is going to be called The Crazy Factory. And it's my fictionalized account of teaching in Texas. It'll be fictionalized enough so I don't get sued. But anyone who has grown up in Texas, especially during the high-stakes testing, or has taught in this state, which is really anti-education if you are minority or poor, they will relate to it. They will know where the truth is. So I am still hoping that the pen can be mightier than the sword, and that even though I have tried being on the inside, being the underdog to change the system is thousands of people making millions of dollars, and they're not going to let me mess up their money. So I got to get it a different way. Have to do it a different way. Change the strategy, because they are using the same strategy of divide and conquer. It doesn't change. They've just been able to divide us. They haven't been able to silence us. So that's all I had to say, and thank you for listening.
Come on, Drew, let's do it.
You want my card?
Yeah.
So, at this school over here, Crockett High School, I was doing, what do they call emergency teaching or supply teaching? Substitute teaching, yeah.
Supply, that's Canadian.
Yeah, well, I've done it in various places. You know. So, and what they did in their wisdom, they put me in charge of the ISS.
Yeah.
Right? They said, you look like, you know.
You look like a boss.
Right?
Yeah.
And the kids are actually, as you know, completely turned off and unplugged.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, we can relate. So they said, what music do you like? And I mentioned bands that are dead, you know, and they're all this sort of black rap and wild stuff, you know. But I realised then the antidote is conversation. Because what they profit from, Julien, they profit from our silence, which implies, of course, that their violence is authorised by our tacit handing it over the power. We never hand it over the power. We retain the right at all times, by any means necessary, to articulate and panaceas for the times we find ourselves in now. And we know quite well that it doesn't do to keep people stupid, because we're going to be relying on them in the future. They young people will sooner or later grow up, and they'll be the ones who'll be running the programs. But if they don't know their algebra, they're going to have to be relying on older people. I say, time to relate, time to connect, time to actually seize the time back. All the stories that they told us are inadequate. We knew that. They've got one book. We've got plenty of books. Not just that old book and that new book, but lots of books. From Alice Walker to The Moment Now, all the panaceas of our time await for us to articulate them. Now your idea is half happening in Colorado. When I was in California, my friends didn't want it legalized because they said, Thom, we can get the best quality through medical marijuana. We don't need to have the law changed. We can subvert the dominant paradigm by using the dominant paradigm. And it puzzled me at times because they'd all been through various stages of consciousness under various states of unconsciousness. And they thought, well, we can white ant. And then you realise, wait a minute, that's the same thinking of the people who are in Russia and China, that they don't want the structure to change, they can white ant it. There is a book called Dolgun, which is about the Lubyanka prison in 1932, where there were two groups of prisoners. One were the professors and the teachers and the poets and the singers who were in jail for cultural activism, and the other were the criminals. And the criminals stole and beat up and completely oppressed the culturals because they said, we don't want change. We profit from the system as it is. So what you say is true. The criminals want employment. They want profit. And the culturals, we have to talk to each other, because who else will listen?
I have a medical problem that relates to this. There is a medicine that makes me calm and sober and just fine, productive, serene, relaxed, yet energetic. Problem with that medication, it is very, very illegal, to the point where I don't use its name, amplified. But when I have my medication, this is going to be the only beer I have this week, probably. When I don't have my medication, I'm anxious, irritable, edgy, and I usually drink a lot to deal with all that anxious, irritable, and edgy, which again makes me unproductive past a certain number of beers. There's that little window between beer 1 and beer 5 or 6 or something where I'm great.
It gets really funny when I give him whiskey.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, that's even worse. But that's legal. It's legal for me to get obliterated. But it's not legal for me to be calm and steady and just productive and fine. Because unfortunately my medication is in the hands of criminals. The problem isn't the medicine. It's the people you gotta deal with to have the medicine. And that leads to all sorts of irritation and drama, and while the situation I am in currently mitigates a lot of that, thankfully, I mean, I spent 5.5 years away from my medicine. And a lot of interesting things happened, and some things actually kind of got done during that time. But I did way too much drinking. And marijuana is not that medicine. It has its own uses. There are creative things I can do under the influence of weed. But it makes my mind race a little too fast. All the ideas come, but my hands aren't fast enough to put them all down, and luckily I can generally remember them later when medicated properly, and I can slow down and get things done. That's why one of these days, when I can afford it and the other work has been done, I'm moving to Portugal.
Wow.
I'm gonna take my sweet English girl and I'm going to Portugal, where we can lie on the beach and be medicated however the fuck we please for the rest of our lives. That is the goal. Portugal, of course, decriminalized everything. But, you know, another thing I'd do, and one of the first things I'd do if I was in charge, is put my medicine in the hands of a priesthood that could dispense it to the people who could use it. See, the vast majority of human beings, when they take my medicine, it makes them itchy and pukey and they don't like it. It doesn't work for them. Then there's another portion of humanity that it dulls and slows, and they may like it, but they shouldn't have it. Now, the priests would be able to tell which group you fell in. If you happen to fall in the even smaller percentage of humanity that I represent, that it just makes okay. I mean, Thom, you were talking about horse meat earlier. Now, I don't know about meat, but I was wondering what horse tastes like as far as that goes. As far as I know, horse tastes like a medicinal flavor down the back of my throat that makes everything okay. That's as close as I'm gonna come to saying it. Yeah. If you know your slang.
I do know my slang, yeah.
So I was with this woman called Joy, and Joy said, would you like the needle? I said, Joy, you know, I really like you, but I'm happier than you are. And you've got your horse to ride, but I'll be happy walking. So I just say everyone's got their horse, whatever ride it may be. Mine is largely food. I really like, you mentioned the heaven of shrimp, and Portugal for me means paella, you know, the seafood dish. Yeah, heaven on earth. And I just find that food, there are dealers everywhere, and mastication is quite legal, and sometimes you can get a really good hit, you know, from a piquant feast, a banquet. I see buffets as a personal challenge, you know. I was in San Francisco and they had what we call sushi buffet, and I wrote this epic poem about the sushi buffet. All you could eat for $14, right? I knew I had won when I saw the terrified look in the eyes of the Japanese manager of the all-you-can-eat buffet. I cleared that place. Sushi, there was sushi no more. Because it's small, it's portable, all the rest of that. It's going chord. It's chord. So yeah, food. This is one about my best friends are vegetables. I talk to my vegetables. So I used to be a meat eater, eat everything that moves, until one day I saw the way the blood came dripping through. Now I eat only vegetables, eat nothing that has parents. Until today I realize that vegetables have rights. That broccoli, don't like the knife, how dare you grate that carrot, and aubergines and courgettes too, and cut up little marrows. I'm sure tomatoes feel the pain when sliced inside your kitchen. It's hard to think a lettuce has a brain, but how do you think it grew then? Did vegetables come from the cabbage patch like dolls bought by the stalk, or are they points of consciousness that can't be sold or bought? I know it makes a market man's life to sell them for a profit, but think of fruit and vegetables and what they want and ain't got. They'd like to drive a Ferrari, or maybe hotted up Porsche, not sit there hot and sweaty in some old Russian borscht, eh? So think of fruit and vegetables next time you cut and chew them. Inside each stew they sing to you for veggie liberation. Freedom for the fruit, victory for the vegetables. You have the right chord? Can't find the chord. It says the lost chord. So, and this is, you got more in your heart?
I'm good.
No more? Okay, we'll just have to throw ourselves out. And if you have more you want to? No? Nope. Oh, it's been a jolly nice conversation. It's really, really good. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you had a good meal. Shrimp is really good. Yeah, shrimp is crustacean, man. So, all power to everything. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It's coming close. It's really good. We'd like to thank the tables and chairs for their rapt attention.
Yes.
Thanks for attention. We'd like to thank the laptop down the back for being programmed by someone other than themselves. We'd like to thank the human beings and one dog. I invite you all to Table Rock Poetry Festival, Thursday, February 6th. And also to the launch of Secrets I Couldn't Tell My Children at Expressions, February the 1st. That's Saturday week. No, next Saturday. Next Saturday. Next Saturday. And then after that is the Table Rock Poetry Festival on Thursday, but you can't because you're working on Friday. I think
I'll get another job.
you're taking steps, deliberate and clear, conscious steps to be able to provide alternatives. Meantime, you've supported and kept alive young people who really need someone in there who's sane. So thank you for that. It's 2 good things. We love you. Life is too fast to actually repeat anything. Everything is happening so fast and multivalently on parallel paths, and we need an identity every day. Every evening is a chance to actually share where we are with those who are somewhere else, and they can tell us where they are without need of GPS or an NSA. We don't need intermediaries, even though this amplifies our meaning. It also captures us for someone else who can't be here. And though the animals of our life live their own reality amongst the garden that they shit in, we are expressing ourselves. Why is this so important? Because we see the alternative. People, I had a friend who was an artist, and she made a clay mask of her face, and she put pins where the lips were. And I said, why? And she said, this is the truth of my life, Thom. I've been taught to be silent, but never to speak. And I said, take the pins out. She said, no. It's a warning to people that not to be suppressed, repressed, depressed. When you can't articulate and let the wild birds out, they're going to peck you apart inside you. As you say, write it out, take it out, get it out of your system. Otherwise, it's in there gnawing away, thinking. I saw a polished cartoon about a man who was thinking, why? Blew his brains out, and his brains are on the floor going, why? There's no end to the questions. And the answers are provisional. We're all interdependent, autonomous entities, but we are interdependent. The same air we're breathing, the same earth we walk upon, the same moment of time we share, the same lines of the unknown poem that we've yet to commit to memory. That's why we have to make it up, because the truth is not good enough. To the next dream.